Welcome to Preeminent Test Prep. Today I'll be taking you through the Math No Calculator section of SAT Practice Test 9. I'll be giving you in-depth answer explanations as well as tips and tricks for the SAT Math section as I go through these problems. So let's go ahead and get started with question number 1. Alright, so question number 1. For the system of equations above, what is the value of x plus y? Well, when I see this lined up in a set where I have a column of two equations, what I'm going to look to do is to add or subtract to get rid of one of my variables. So I see that if I multiply this bottom equation by 2, then I have 2x up top and I have 2x on the bottom. So what I can do then is I can go ahead and subtract that 2x on the bottom from that 2x on the top to get rid of my x. So now what I'm left with is 0x plus, I have negative y, and then I have minus 2 times 2y. So that means I have negative y minus 4y, right? So I can go ahead and put down minus 4y equals, and then I have 8 minus 2 times 4. 2 times 4 is 8, so that's 8 minus 8, which is 0, which simplifies to negative 4y equals 0. I divide each side by negative 4 to isolate y, and I see that I have y is equal to 0 because 0 over negative 4 is 0. So now that I know that y is 0, I have to keep in mind I'm asked for x plus y. So now I have to go back and I have to solve for x. So what I can do here is I can go plug in my 0 for y, right? So I know that I have x now, x plus 0 equals 4, which means that x is equal to 4. So I have x equals 4 and y equals 0, which means that 4 plus 0 is equal to 4. So x plus y is equal to 4, so my answer is going to be B. Question 2, which of the following is equivalent to this equation shown here? Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine my like terms. So I see I'm going to have 2 times x squared. That's going to give me 2x squared. I see I'll have 3 times x squared. So I'll have 2x squared plus 3x squared to give me 5x squared. Then I see that I have 2 times negative x, which gives me negative 2x. And then I see that I have 3 times negative x, which gives me minus 3x. So now I have 5x squared, and then I have minus 5x. So my answer is going to be 5x squared minus 5x. So my answer there is going to be A. All right, question 3. Which of the following statements is true about the graph of the equation 2y minus 3x equals negative 4 in the xy plane? So I'm going to go ahead and get this into slope-intercept form because we're asked about slope and the y-intercept. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and add 3x to each side so that I can isolate my y. So now I have 2y is equal to positive 3x minus 4. So I'm going to go ahead and divide each side by 2 to isolate y. So now I see that I have y is equal to positive 3 over 2x. So that means I have a positive slope, so I can get rid of a and b because they say a negative slope. And then I have minus 4 over 2. Well, 4 over 2 is just 2, so I have minus 2, and that's a negative y-intercept. So my answer is going to be D. All right, question 4. The front of a roller coaster car is at the bottom of a hill and is 15 feet above the ground. All right, so we know it's positive 15 feet above the ground. If the front of the roller coaster car rises at a constant rate of 8 feet per second, which of the following equations gives the height h in feet of the roller coaster car s seconds after it starts up the hill? Well, we see that it rises 8 feet per second, and we know that the height then is going to equal that 15 feet that it starts at, so this plus 15, plus 8 times however many seconds there are, because we are increasing our height at a rate of 8 feet per second. So our answer there is going to be A. All right, question 5. The equation above gives the amount C in dollars an electrician charges for a job that takes H hours. Ms. Sanchez and Mr. Rowland each hired this electrician. The electrician worked 2 hours longer on Ms. Sanchez's job than Mr. Rowland's job. How much more did the electrician charge Mrs. Sanchez than Mr. Rowland? All right, well, we have 2 hours longer is how much this electrician worked on Ms. Sanchez's job than Mr. Rowland's. So we have 2 hours times in our equation for cost, that's $75 per hour. So that's going to give us 75 times 2 is equal to $150. So our answer there is going to be C. Question 6. The circle above has center O. The length of arc ADC is 5 pi. So this arc right here from C to A is 5 pi, and x is 100. So we have 100 degrees for x. What is the length of arc ABC? All right, well, what we know is that there are 360 degrees in a circle. So we have 360 degrees in a circle. We know that there's 100 degrees from arc ADC. So that means that there's going to be 260 degrees for the rest of this circle. So when we take that 260 degrees then, and we put it over the 100 degrees from our 5 pi from this arc angle, or from this arc length, I'm sorry, we get 2.6. So now if we take that 2.6 then, and we multiply it by what the arc length of that smaller arc length was, that ADC, which was 5 pi, we will get our arc length for ABC, which is that larger arc length, and that will give us 13 pi. So our answer there is going to be B. All right, question 7. If 8 over x equals 160, what is the value of x? Well, right off the bat, what I know is I need a larger number. This 160 has to be larger than what this 8 is. So if I'm dividing, I need a decimal, because if I divide 8 by any number greater than 1, it gets smaller. So I need to divide by a decimal in order to get it larger. So I know my answer has to be D, 0.05. Question 8. In the equation above, a is a constant. If no value of x satisfies the equation, what is the value of a? Well, if no value of x is going to satisfy this equation, then that means that my coefficients of x have to equal each other. So whatever 2 times a is has to equal whatever my coefficient of x on this side is. So what I can do is I can take this 3, I multiply it by x to give me 3x. Then I take this 5, I multiply it by x to get plus 5x. I see that that gives me 8x. So now I have 8x is equal to 2ax. And we know that these two have to equal each other in order for there to be no value of x that satisfies the equation. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide each side by, or I'll go ahead and divide this side by 2 to isolate ax, right? And I'll divide by 2x as well to go ahead and get rid of my x. So now I got to divide my other side by 2x as well. My x will cancel, and I'm left with 8 over 2, which is equal to 4, is what a is equal to. So my answer there is going to be C for question number 8. Question number 9. A system of 3 equations is graphed in the xy plane. How many solutions does the system have? Alright, well, a solution for these 3 equations is going to be where they all equal each other. So I'm looking for a point where they all intersect, and that only occurs at one point, which is right there where I circled. That's the only point where all 3 equations intersect, so my answer will be 1, which is answer choice B. Question 10. The equation above is true for all x where a and b are constants. What is the value of a times b? So this is similar to question 8 in that a times b, whatever its coefficient is, we see that we have a times b, we have an x on each one. So that means I'm going to have, and we have a minus sign right here as well. That means I'm going to have minus ab x squared. I also have a 5x squared here, so I have to keep that in mind, that I have to add that 5x squared. So I have minus abx squared plus 5x squared, and that's going to have to equal my x squared value on the other side of the equation, which is negative 9x squared. Alright, so I can go ahead and subtract 5x squared, or I'm sorry, this 5 is multiplied by this 3, right? So that's going to be 15x squared. So we're going to have negative abx squared plus 15x squared is equal to negative 9 squared. So now I can go ahead and subtract 15x squared from each side. Subtract 15x squared from each side. Negative 9x squared minus 15x squared will give me negative 24x squared. That's going to equal my negative ab x squared. My x squareds are going to cancel, so now I have negative ab equals negative 24. My negative signs will then cancel, and I'm left with ab is equal to 24. So my answer is going to be C. Question 11. Which of the following represents all the possible values of x that satisfy the equation above? Alright, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have to multiply by x minus 3, because that's what is in my denominator right here. When I do that, my x minus 3 here and here are going to cancel. Right, so I do that, my x minus 3's cancel, I'm left with x on my left side, and then on my other side, I also will then multiply by 2 to get rid of this denominator. But since I multiplied by x minus 3, I also have to multiply by 2 on this side, but since I multiplied by x minus 3 on my left side, I also have to multiply by x minus 3 on my right side. So now I'm going to have 2x, because I multiplied the right side by 2, I have to multiply my left side by 2, is equal to 2x times x minus 3, because what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So now I have to go ahead and do this 2x times x minus 3. When I do that, I get 2x squared minus 6x is equal to 2x. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my 2x to the right side of the equation so I can set it equal to 0 and then solve for my values of x. So I subtract 2x from each side of the equation, and I have 0 is equal to 2x squared minus 8x. So I can go ahead and factor now. So now I'll have 0 is equal to the factor of 2x squared minus 8x, which I can go ahead and factor out 2x and then multiply by x minus 4. All right, so those are my factors there. So now I'm going to go ahead and set each factor equal to 0. So I have 2x is equal to 0. When I divide each side by 2 here, I see that x then will equal 0. And then when I have x minus 4 is equal to 0, I'll add 4 to each side, and I will get x is equal to 4. So now I have x is equal to 4 and x is equal to 0. So those will be my two answers there. So my answer for number 11 then will be B. All right, question 12. Which of the following is equivalent to the expression above for x is greater than 0? So in this case, what I have to do is I have to multiply by 2x plus 1 over 2x plus 1 in order to cancel this denominator out. So when I do that, I get rid of it on the bottom and on the top. So I'm left now with 1 over 2x plus 1. But what I do to this number here, this 1 over 2x plus 1, that number there, I also have to do it to this 5. So that means I also have to multiply my 5 then by 2x plus 1 over 2x plus 1. And when we do that, what we're going to get now is a common denominator, which will allow us to add these. So now we have a common denominator in this 2x plus 1. So when I multiply my 5 by this 2x plus 1, that'll give me 10x plus 5. So now I have 10x plus 5, and remember I have this 1 over 2x plus 1 on this left side, plus 10x plus 5 all over 2x plus 1. So you can see now I have that common denominator. So now that I have that, I can go ahead and add what's up top and keep what's on bottom. So on bottom, I'll still have 2x plus 1, and on top, I'll have 10x plus 5 plus 1, which is the same as 10x plus 6. So my final answer will be 10x plus 6 over 2x plus 1, which is answer choice D. All right, question 13. The graph of the function f in the xy plane above is a parabola. Which of the following defines f? Well, the first thing I'm going to check to get rid of the answer choices is my lowest point on this parabola. I see it's at 1. Now, since that is at 1, I know that my y right here has to be plus 1, which it isn't all of them. So in this case, it didn't help me eliminate anything, but it could in the future. So that's one thing to keep in mind. All right, next thing I'm going to look at is I see I have this 3 here. So my vertex I see is at 3. I know that that means I have to have x minus 3. So I see I have that in answer choice A and answer choice C. So I can go ahead and get rid of B and D because I know that A and C have the correct vertex, but B and D do not because they have plus 3 and we need minus 3 since this is at positive 3. Next thing I'm looking at is what do I jump from when I go over 1 to either side. I see when I go over 1 to either side, I'm going up 4 because 5 minus 1 is 4. So if I see I'm going up 4, I know that I have to have this 4 in front of my equation, which tells me that my answer will have to be A. All right, question 14. In which of the following does the shaded region represent the solution set in the xy plane to the system of inequalities above? All right, my first equation is y is greater than or equal to x plus 2. So I'm going to find that equation. I see that equation, that y is greater than x plus 2, that's this line here. So this line is what it's corresponding to. Now, we have to have the shaded region represent the solution. So we need to have shaded this part, but we see it's not shaded in A, so we can go ahead and get rid of A. And we see it's not shaded in D either, so we can go ahead and get rid of D because it isn't shaded there. Now we see it is shaded in C and B as far as we can tell. So now we go ahead and move on to our next equation, and I'm going to go ahead and put this one in slope-intercept form as well so it's easier to mark. So we're going to go ahead and subtract 2x from each side. So we do that, we get 3y is less than or equal to 6 minus 2x. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and divide each side by 3 to isolate y. And we see we're going to have a y-intercept of 2, and we're going to have that minus 2/3 x. So we're going to have y must be less than or equal to 2 minus 2/3 x. So we're going to go ahead and find y-intercept of 2. We see all of them have that, and then we see we have to have a negative slope of negative 2/3 x with y being less than that. So since y is less than that, that means we have to have shaded in underneath this line. So this line here is what's corresponding to this equation right here, and we have to shade what's underneath it because y has to be less than. So we need what's underneath that, right, but above this line here. So when we do that, we see our answer choice is B. So question 14, our answer is going to be B, and we can go ahead and move on to question 15. What is the set of all solutions to the equation root x plus 2 equals negative x? So when we see we have the square root, what we're going to do is we're going to square it. But if we square one side of the equation, we also have to square the other. So now we're going to have negative x squared, which gives us x squared is equal to x plus 2. I'm going to go ahead and subtract x from each side. And I'm also going to subtract 2 from each side to set it equal to 0. Subtract x, subtract 2. So now I'm left with x squared minus x minus 2 is equal to 0. Now I'm going to factor this out. So I'm looking for factors. So I see that if I do x minus 2 and then x plus 1, that x times x gives me x squared. I'll have minus 2x, but then I'll have plus 1x, and that will leave me with negative x. And then I have negative 2 times 1, which gives me negative 2. So those will be my factors. I set them equal to 0. So now I have x minus 2 equals 0, which when I add 2 to each side is going to give me x is equal to 2. And these are possible answers. Keep in mind that these will have to be checked in the equation, so don't think you're done once you get to this step. Next, we'll have x plus 1 equals 0, which when we subtract 1 from each side will leave us with x equals negative 1. So now we have these possible answer choices. We go ahead and plug them in to check. So we'll start with 2. So I'm going to erase this. Now if I were to plug in 2, I would have root 2 plus 2 is equal to negative 2. Now is this true? Well, root 2 plus 2 is the same as square root of 4, which is 2. Now does 2 equal negative 2? It does not, which means that 2 cannot be an answer choice. So we can get rid of A and C. Next, we're going to check negative 1. So I'll check that on this blank spot I have over here. So we're going to have negative 1 plus 2 underneath our square root is equal to negative 1, which negative 1 will give us positive 1. And we know that negative 1 plus 2 gives us 1. The square root of 1 is 1. So that is equal to each other. So we know our answer will be B. All right, question 16. What is the volume in cubic centimeters of a right rectangular prism that has a length of 4 centimeters, a width of 9 centimeters, and a height of 10 centimeters? Well, the volume of a right rectangular prism is going to be our length times our width times our height. So I'll go ahead and write that for you here. Length times width times height. We know that our length is 4 centimeters. We know our width is 9 centimeters. We know our height is 10 centimeters. So we're going to do 4 times 9. That's going to give us 36. 36 times 10 is going to give us 360. So our answer for 16 is 360. Question 17. If x satisfies the equation above, what is the value of 2x plus 1? First thing we have to do is solve for x, then plug into 2x plus 1. So if I subtract 2 from each side of this equation to isolate x, which is what we want to do, we always want to isolate x if there's no other y, set x equal to a given number. So we're going to have 4 minus 2, which will give us 2. We have 2 is equal to 4x. We divide each side by 4. And we get that x is equal to 2 over 4, which is equal to 1/2. So now I do 2 times my 1/2 because I'm asked for 2x plus 1. And then I do plus 1. So we see our 2's cancel here. We're left with 1 plus 1. 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. So my answer for 17 will be 2. All right, question 18. We see we're given a graph. It says that the figure above shows the complete graph of the function f in the xy plane. The function g not shown is defined by g of x is equal to f of x plus 6. What is the maximum value of the function g? All right, well, the maximum value of the function g is going to equal the maximum value of f of x plus this 6. We see our maximum value of f of x is at 2. So our maximum value of g of x will be that 2 plus 6, which is going to give us 8. So our maximum value of the function g will be 8. Question 19. Triangle PQR. So when I'm given shapes, I like to draw them out because it'll help you not make a simple mistake and avoid losing points. So we're going to go ahead and draw PQR. It's a right angle Q. So we got this right angle at Q. If sine of R, we know that the sine is the opposite over the hypotenuse, is 4/5, right? So our opposite then is going to be 4, hypotenuse will be 5. And when I see this, I recognize that that's a 3, 4, 5 triangle because 3 squared is 9. 9 plus 4 squared is 16, so 16 plus 9 is 25. The square root of 25 is 5. So that's just one thing that you'll want to remember on the test if you can, because it's a helpful trick. All right, now what is the value of the tangent of P? All right, well, the tangent, we know that is TOA, which is the opposite over the adjacent. If we look at our opposite, that's 3, and our adjacent is this 4 right here. So we know our answer then is going to be 3 over 4. Question 20. The graph of the linear function f is shown in the xy plane above. The graph of the linear function g, not shown, is perpendicular to the graph f and passes through the point 1, 3. What is the value of g of 0? All right, well, what do we know? We know that we pass through this point 1, 3, and we know we're perpendicular. All right, so if we're perpendicular, then we know that our slope is the opposite reciprocal. So we see our slope of f of x, it's -2 and over 1. Right, so we have a rise of -2 and a run of 1, which means our slope is -2, which means that the slope of a perpendicular line then has to be positive 1/2, right, because it's the opposite reciprocal. So we're going to have positive 1/2 x, right, and we know that we have the point 1, 3, so 3 as our y has to equal 1/2 times our x of 1 plus some constant, right? So what constant does it have to be? That constant could be 0 if it's equal to it already, but it isn't. Because here we see we have 3 is equal to 1/2 times 1, which is 1/2, plus some constant. I subtract 1/2 from each side. 3 minus 1/2 is going to give me 2.5 is equal to my constant c, right? So now that we know our constant, we know if we plug in 0 for x, I'll go ahead and show you our equation we finally have here. We have y is equal to 1/2 x plus our constant of 2.5. If we plug in that 0 for x like it asks at that value of g of 0, we know that we will have 0 times 1/2, which is 0, which means that y will equal 2.5. So our answer there will be 2.5. Thank you for watching Preeminent Test Prep. Make sure to subscribe, like, and share as we will be releasing more videos to help you prepare for the SAT.